Yes, welcome back. If you just joined us, it is The Press, and I'm glad to let you know that I have a guest in the house as we await other guests to join us. Today, we're taking a look at the topic, illusion of progress, hunger political tool under Tinubu, says the ADC. This is exactly what we want to take a look at today. The African Democratic Congress, ADC, has accused the federal government of manipulating food prices and weaponizing hunger for political gains. We want to find out how true that is by the ADC. If my guest agrees with the statements being credited to the ADC, who has added that the administration's claim of improved local food production and a fall in prices is not true, that is a complete deceit to the Nigerian state, the Nigerian people, that what the federal government is saying is completely different from what is attainable. What we're asking is it true that this present administration is using hunger as a political tool, on Nigerians? We want to take a look at such allegations. Of course, the phone lines were opened so you can be part of the conversation. But to move on, let me introduce my guest. One of my guests on the show is a friend. He's been here a long time ago. I'm happy that I was able to get him to come here. He's a Nigerian youth and his opinion matters. Actually was intending to bring two classes of people, the young and not too young, so we can, compare arguments and, of course, add that to what you have to say. In the studio with me today is Amiemenoghena. Ami-Okhani is a social affairs analyst. It's so nice to have you on the press today.
Thank you, Anire. Good morning.
Yes, you're looking very good, by the way.
Thank you.
I did accuse you that you're eating all the money by yourself and just leaving your girl
Let's hope the money is there.
No, it's difficult for you to tell anyone that the money is not there. Look at the way you do.
It's a smoke screen, an illusion.
Oh, an illusion. Yeah. I think the conversation has started already.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Okhani, let us go straight on to what we have on ground this morning. The ADC has come up to accuse the Tinubu administration of smoke screen, like you've said, that, the cry and heal about prices falling is not true, is an illusion of progress. He has accused, the ADC has accused the present administration that all the gains they keep telling Nigerians is on paper and something that is imaginary and totally elusive when it comes to reality. We're going to start right there, heating the conversation, just the way it was given by the ADC. Ironically, it is not only the ADC, talking party-wise, that has accused this present administration of saying one thing and doing the next. The economy stares us in the face. We as Nigerians live the reality of the economy, and oftentimes where statistics are given, especially by the MBS, Nigerians will scream, it is not tallying. And now we have this presently, amongst other things happening to us as a people. So I want your take on this from the top. Your state of mind on Nigeria as you help us analyze to understand your feel about this present allegation, weaponizing poverty, as using poverty as a tool on Nigerians.
Okay, so thank you for the question. So the interesting thing about this conversation is that our opinions do not need to hold sway here. We just have to look at what verifiable data can tell us about it. So are food prices dropping? If you check, the easier answer would be yes. Right, if we look at some food prices around January and we look at them now, we would say yes, food prices are dropping. If inflation numbers, when the headline inflation, the biggest contributor to that is food prices, right? Food inflation. Is that also dropping? Yes, it is. But the question is why? And I think when you read, I think it was Bolaji that was putting that out for ADC, his argument is that the government is attributing decreasing food prices to local production, while he is saying no. And if we look at verifiable data, I tend to agree on with the whether it's for political reasons or not. The data would show that local production is not the reason why we have decrease in food prices across the country. So what's one thing we have seen, right? There's this report I was working on in September, and one thing I saw from that report is that we have increased importation of food, particularly rice, wheat, and maize. Over this time, we have to get those short-term quick wins when it comes to food prices, right? It's largely due to importation of food that has happened among those things. And what have that done? Local production is not the evidence does not show that local production is the reason why we have decreasing food prices. It shows that importation. And what is the impact on that generally? We understand that the more you import, the more local farmers cannot compete, and that means the desire for them to be involved in farming decreases. So it's clear on that. Verifiable data will show you that there's shrinking farming spaces in Nigeria because farmers do not want to farm anymore. We're all familiar with the whole insecurity issue. I was in Benue State over the weekend in an IDP camp, and speaking to those guys, you could see that these are men and women that would have been farming in their communities, but they are here in the IDP. We could see that food insecurity, so local production is actually dropping. So attributing decreasing food prices to local production, that doesn't really say. And to add to that, it shows that currently our food prices is more susceptible to world numbers, because again, FX stability has made it easy for importation of food to happen. It means that our food prices are more vulnerable to global shocks. So to answer that question easily, yes, food prices are dropping. Yes, inflation numbers are dropping. But when it comes to data, you must ask yourself why. And the why is it's not local production, is let's say short-term policy adjustment of massive inflation of importation waivers are what the data says is bringing about what we see in food prices.
Okay, so I have some statistics here to buttress what my guest has said. Again, we will still go back to what the ADC is saying as a foundation of our discussion. Like, the way we do it, like I do it, I come up with visuals to let you understand exactly the direction where the conversation is going. Now, the African Democratic Congress, ADC, is deeply concerned by the federal government misleading narrative around the so-called drop in food prices. Contrary to what is being celebrated in official circles, the reality of the on ground, as confirmed by the voices of struggling farmers and families across the country, is that the Tinubu government is manipulating food prices and weaponizing hunger for political gains. The party maintains that the reported decline in the prices of some food items was artificial, blaming it on import waivers that have flooded the market with cheap foreign goods. It added that such development neither reflected sound economic policy nor proved an increase in domestic production. The reported drop in the prices of some food items is artificial and a result of import waivers that have flooded the market with cheap foreign food. It is neither evidence of sound policy nor proof of increased local production. Now, let us continue our conversation with my guest, Okhani, as we still expecting my other guest to join us. It is a promise that he will be here. Now, I've listened to what you say. Now, it is important for us to understand these policies. And my question is, why is there so much difference? Why is there so much disparity between what we hear, on what we read on paper, what we hear the federal government tell Nigerians, and of course the reality on ground? Shockingly, most times the data given by the MBS doesn't reflect the reality on ground, because that is what we've come to discover as journalists, those who pursue the truth, who try as much as possible to keep the people abreast of happenings. When we come here and we reel out the statistics, we reel out statements from the federal government when they pat themselves on the back with policies that are working, and most Nigerians just sit back and wonder if, in quote, there is a government different from this nation where people seem to be suffering and so much hunger in the land. So that is a problem for me. And when I have the chance, I keep asking the questions when I have guests on set who are Nigerians to help us understand it. The disparity between these policies and reality. Why is there so much disparity? How come the truth seems to be different from reality oftentimes?
Okay, so one thing I always know is that the perception of reality is more real than reality itself. And if you watch football, imagine a person score own goals, right? Maybe you score own goals against yourself. And even though you score against your opponent, the scale may not still be balanced. So sometimes when government reel out some reforms that have happened in terms of improvement, like for example, decreasing inflation numbers, people would ask that, where did you meet the inflation numbers before? You know, there's that perception that the creator of the problem, the creator of rising food prices, informed by, when you look at that CPI basket, you see energy price, you see transportation. We knew what happened with the floating of the naira against the dollar. We knew what happened with subsidy. So the people blames the government for bringing about these liberalization policies that brought them to this problem in the first place, right? When we say food inflation prices are improving, it's improving against a base that the administration did not meet. When the administration came on board, its policies, and people have different arguments for pro or con on that, brought about this increase. Now, so the argument with people is that though you are doing these things, some people would admit that yes, these prices are dropping, but you were the one in the first place that made the prices to go up. So for them, they want to compare what they have back to where they were before the administration in terms of how easy their lives were. Now, even though there was increase in the minimum wage, again, conversations will come about how well have that been implemented. So I see it from an own goal scenario, right? Perception that you brought us here and this is where we are. And I think the ADC's point also is something we actually also have to look at beyond politics. Look at it from statesmen and women, is that these policies are very short term, right? It's to get quick wins, right? And maybe if you are a politician, you understand why the government wants to quickly reduce those prices. But the truth is that the base, the foundation is actually faulty. For example, our mechanization rate in Nigeria is very low, right? If I ask any person who is the Minister of Agriculture, you will struggle. I myself, I have to always Google who is the Minister of Agriculture before I even know the Minister of Agriculture. It's not one of the headline ministers you find everywhere. So the structural reforms, right? The government did roll out something around 2,000 tractors. Again, we don't really know the update on that. So I think this argument I agree with here is that we are not, the drops is not based on foolproof structural reforms. They are just quick wins. Yeah, they are just quick wins. And the problem is that if you do have global shocks today, right? Imagine we had the Ukraine crisis there, and Ukraine was a very good producer of wheat. What will happen to these things, right? And they have conversation about GMO have also increased, right? Genetically modified food, and we have argument on that. So the food, from a food security perspective, on the short term, we can be happy that the food prices are dropping. People will not agree, and why they will not agree is that they knew where they were before Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Yeah. Yes, to them, you scored own goals. You are now scoring against your opponent. You cannot just come and claim. So they feel like you should not claim glory for this. You are solving your own problems, right?
Not that of the Nigerians.
Yes, yeah, but for me, what I'm saying is that the structure. And we'll come to, what insecurity is causing for everybody now. We're having shrinking farming spaces. Importation is projected to increase, especially around these three crops: wheat, maize, and rice, as I mentioned earlier. And you've observed that the prices are dropping. So, summarily, that is what is happening, and you won't blame people for their perception
about the situation.
Again, that's how it is.
All right, the conversation is still on. We'll take a short break to open the phone lines and also hope that my other guest is here. Please do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back. It is still the press, and this morning we're taking a look at a very important topic: illusion of progress, hunger, political tool under Tinubu, says the ADC. The phone lines are open. Please let's display the phone lines on the screen so our callers can call in and be part of the conversation now. I've had 22 missed calls since the show began. Now, this is the time for you to call in. Please, those of you call in while we were discussing, please call again so you can be part of the conversation. Illusion of progress, hunger, political tool under Tinubu. We want to analyze this. We've been doing that with my guest who came in this morning, and of course we want the calls to come in so you're part of the conversation. So Okhani, let us continue. You've raised a lot of points this morning, of course, asking if we have shocks, sudden shocks, world shocks, as it were, what will we do as a people? Again, don't forget that this is a mono economy, an economy that depends on foreign goods rather than those produced here. I don't know where the problem really lies, where there's a culture of always believing that what comes across the seas is better than what we have here. This culture cuts across not just what we eat, what we wear. It has infiltrated our culture and tradition. It's a mentality that we carry as Nigerians. If it is not foreign, it is not good. One thing that the Nigerian industry has done for Nigeria, as it were, is to try as much as possible to change their culture through Afrobeats. The entertainment industry, especially the music scene, has created that platform for Nigeria. It has put Nigeria on the world map, if you ask me. That's what I believe. I don't know if anyone will argue with that. It has put Nigeria on the world map. Now, it is strange that you actually raise a point that I never thought about. The fact that if you ask a Nigerian who the Minister of Agriculture is right now or in the past, they will struggle to know who that is. So one would imagine that the only minister that will make so much noise, the minister apart from the president that we should know, should be the Minister of Agriculture, because without food, the people will not survive. So how do we change this narrative? How do we go back to basics? How do we rewind the Nigerian culture to look inward rather than outward? How important is it for us to get it as a people that if we do not solve our problem, especially the food problem, of course, which we'll have to take a look at side by side, insecurity. Like you already said, the farmlands are shrinking, and a lot of farmers will hold insecurity responsible. Hey, it's no lie, where I come from, we have women who farm to feed their people. Women farm more than the men, but they can't go to the farms anymore. It's difficult to survive in my village or in my state, because the food that they used to produce, the quality, the quantity has fallen because of insecurity. So these are a lot of issues packed into one. Again, the focus question is, how do we get back to basics to begin to look inward rather than outward?
Okay, so just to note something quickly also on the drop in food prices also, sometimes the way numbers are calculated, you calculate average, right? And so there are variations between North and South. I think I was reading some reports some months ago that even though we want to say that we can see some decrease, it's good to also note that every part of Nigeria may not feel, some part of guys, especially in southern Nigeria, infer that food prices are still high, and persons in northern parts sometimes prefer that food prices are dropping. Just to note that again when we look at these numbers. Now, on the whole concept of importation, I like to see it from two perspectives. One, again, I see it as some persons who are just taking a business decision, right? And if local productions continues to be expensive, right? I travel to some local areas in Northwest, and I know how difficult it is for you to get to some of these farmlands, right? They are not accessible. Beyond insecurity, these are other structural issues, land tenure systems, communal clashes when it comes to who owns this land, etc. So it's safe to say, and I did highlight something earlier, that for every 1,000 hectares in Nigeria, we have less than 2 tractors. The numbers will tell you 1.5. If you compare that to the standard will tell you try to have like 15 to 20 tractors plowing 1,000 hectares of land. Mechanization rate is low. So it's easier for importation to be cheaper, because the structural things that are supposed to be there for food production to be seamless in the country is difficult. So I think that has now created, for people that want to do quick business decision, why invest so much money in trying to, invest in agriculture? Well, if I import and sell, I will make more money. Again, from people's individual differences, people would like to be rational, people would like to take business decisions that work for them. Also, again, we must always highlight that as a country, we cannot be good at everything, right? So what economists will always tell you is principle of comparative advantage. Can you invest more in, those things you are very good at, while the things that you are not very sound at? The thing about importation is that every country in the world imports, but to some extent, those important things are very, very important to your country, like maize, for example. Corn is a very important thing to Nigeria. How well do we farm it? How well do we invest in improved seedlings? How many kind of agricultural extension officers do we have? These things are not there, right? The structural reforms are so weak. And Nigeria is a patient that has multiple ailments at the same time, right? You're trying to solve malaria, trying to solve HIV, cancer, all these ailments at the same time. And so most times it's not like you can solve one and move on to the next. And these are the issues.
It's impossible.
Yeah, so there are so many things to solve at the same time.
It's impossible to solve one and move to the next.
So it's very, very, it's not impossible. It's very, let me just use the word difficult, because impossibility, again, is not something I like saying. So in answering that question, the affinity for importation, from where I see it, is cheaper, is easier. On the short term, it's more lucrative. But importation on the long term harms us when it comes to job creation, when it comes to national security. Imagine waivers are put on Nigeria, bans are put on Nigeria, for example. How does that impact us?
Okay, is it not a paradox to live in this country called Nigeria, with the numbers, with the weather, with the land, with the now when you talk about the population, you talk about the youthful population, we have more younger people than we have older people in Nigeria.
Yes, we do.
Is it not a paradox that for a nation so blessed that we are hungry as a people?
It is a paradox, right?
That we are hungry.
It's an insult, actually. It's a very bad thing.
We are hungry as a people.
Yeah.
Grapefruits that you buy for 20 naira, just one grapefruit, you buy one grapefruit for 1,500. These are fruits grown right here. These are not imported foods. Pear, maize. It's difficult for you to leave. I can't remember the last time I ate fruits. When I became very, because I've been ill in recent time, the money is going in that. I'm not talking about the medication now. Trying to get fruits and stay healthy.
Very high.
Is so high. It's mind blowing. In fact, it costs more illness. It costs more illness trying to cure the illness itself.
Definitely,
because when you sit down and calculate what is going out of you, it's like blood dripping from your veins. And these are foods cultivated here. That's what I'm saying. It's a paradox that in a nation as great as Nigeria, as wonderful as Nigeria, blessed with everything blessable by our people, we are struggling so much. That's where the problem is.
So we are a potential rich country, right? But to what extent have we transformed these potentials into resources? The question over time for me has been very low. You may say we grow maize, but to what extent the local maize production meets the local demand?
In Abuja, one maize is 500.
Yeah, so the issues of these things again is that Nigeria is a very big country. For the fact that
500 to 800 naira.
For the fact that you are planting it, how well does it meet? Again, the whole aim of data comes into this. What is the local demand needed for all these essential food prices, food stuffs. What are we currently producing? How well are we producing it? So again, we may say we have the potential. Do we maximize it? Do we think agriculture is lucrative? I keep hitting the mechanization numbers. Most farmings in these countries are done by manual labor. How many people would you feed with manual labor? What level of investment?
Subsistence farming.
Yes, what level of investment in research do we actually do in agriculture? So when we roll out these potentials we have, do we really back it up with the work? Do we really forge works into actions? Do we really create a system like Niger State, for example, is a good example of a state government trying to do a whole lot of work when it comes to agriculture. How well have this happened? You know, people will come again. How are local government? And one of the headline news again is that hold the governors accountable. You know, agriculture is not on the exclusive list. Agriculture, everybody can work on agriculture. So again, how are our state government also rolling out specific interventions to maximize these lands we have? So I hear a lot about potentials, but most times I do not see the actions we really take to take off these potentials. We boast ourselves in being farmers, but by the time you check, if not for importation, most things you eat are imported. Because the local production, as currently constituted, cannot meet local demand. What has been done to do that? And we just highlighting earlier now that we struggle to know our agricultural minister. I would Google, maybe I think his name is Kiari, but I would Google to confirm that. Right? How many Nigerians on the street would walk to and say who is the Minister of Agriculture, and they would know it? Again, we must hold state government to accountable. What do you do? And all this thing comes back to electoral systems, what we clamor for, how well we push for these things. So, in conclusion, it is painful for a country that's diverse, that has multi-capacities when it comes to food, to be this bad. But again, I'll release structural issues again. Mechanization is low. Land tenure system, people fighting for land too is another issue. Insecurity is the biggest one now. Areas that were very involved in farming, the people have deserted their communities now. Place I used to travel to before in the Northwest and see people, I don't see them now. I just told you I came back from Benue, not quite long.
When you're traveling,
yes, you don't see them. You don't see them anymore.
Side.
One of the headlines today again was bandits now requesting levies from persons, right?
Million.
So these things are not outside, right? People pay money.
In Adamawa, right?
Yes, people pay. In Sokoto, it was in Sokoto. It was in Sokoto. People pay money to bandits to be able to access their farmland, right? People at the locals are contributing money they're supposed to invest in agriculture to pay ransom, right? I was in Castina some years ago, and people were telling you that they were harvesting their crops immature so they can sell that crop and pay for ransom. So all these issues together, right, are the reasons why we are where we are, and why maybe the government seek to import more to address these issues on the short term, which is what I agree with the ADC on the illusion.
Well, I don't know why the phone lines are not coming this morning. I would really love to hear from you from the flip side. So you can be part of the 21 missed calls that I had. Those callers are not calling in now. I don't know why, and the show is almost rounding up. I'm still expecting that I get at least a call or two so you can add to the conversation right here on the show. My guest is still here. The other guests are well. I don't know what happened. So, Okhani, what do we do? Beyond words to action, because what we need now as Nigerians, we don't want fancy words. We don't want policies that are short term. We're looking for things that will be sustainable. That's what we're looking for. A change. We want to see the federal government come out to tell us this is what you're doing, and we see Nigerians beat their chest to say, hey, this is exactly what we got. That is the Nigeria of my dream, seeing government serve the people and the people enjoying to be citizens in the country that they call home. Because of time, you've said a lot. You've given us deep analysis on the situation on ground. But before we go, let us address the Minister of Agriculture now. In your opinion, with all of these that is happening, with Nigerians insisting that the policies on paper never reflect reality. The ADC has come out to say it's an illusion of progress. A lot of Nigerians will accept, some will not. You, of course, have told us that prices have fallen, but I've gone to the market. I was able to go this Saturday, and I can assure you that I didn't see any difference from where I went to. In fact, 500 naira was included in groundnut oil. I was expecting to get it for 4,000 naira, which was on my list, and the lady tells me it is 4,500 for the quantity that I usually buy, but I could get palm oil for 4,200 naira. So I was expecting to see that change. High. I couldn't get, I went through the prices. Yeah. It was the same.
There are some food prices that drop, there are some that are high.
So, in your opinion, what should be the work of the Ministry of Agriculture and, of course, the Minister? We've identified insecurity. We've identified a lot of problems. But you raise a point here. Most of us don't even know who the Minister of Agriculture is. Therefore, does it mean that in our hearts, they're not doing anything? Is that the conclusion that we're going to get out of this? If that be the case or not, what should be the role of the Ministry of Agriculture and, of course, the Minister in making sure that words are matched with reality beyond illusion of progress?
Okay, so for me, when you go, you will see things are being said. I would love to move these conversations more to subnationals, right? I would like to make subnationals to take more ownership, especially our governors in the north with the large expanse of land that they possess. I would like to see how we look at what's happening in Niger State, look at the wins we can get from there. I think you could see Niger and Lagos State having collaborations when it even comes to land. The Lagos State was making some investments because they had the land mass. I would love to see our subnationals take more ownership of our agricultural system. From the federal level, we would love to see those, things. Security has to be something we need to resolve, right? We need to resolve security. We need to, there's agencies that are invested in research. How well do they really, do this research, right? We have many agricultural universities in Nigeria, and something like, there's this thing I'm trying to remember. There's a study I read once, and even people were struggling to do their project in schools. The resourcing needed for agricultural students, for example, the so-called experts we are supposed to turn out in the future, they do not even have the basic resources within. Go to all our schools today and check agricultural department. Do they have the basic resources for them to even do basic projects, do basic research that would in turn help us as a country? No. Most times the research we do in these countries will depend on development partners to come and do this research. How well have we actually done this research? So my argument is twofold. There are a lot of things that fit into this. You won't observe that the so-called agricultural universities at some point started taking other courses and left their core focus of turning out experts for us as a country that would help us to understand agricultural systems better. Again, we need investment, right? From a macroeconomic level, we need to create an enabling environment. And when we say that, it comes with simple things like road infrastructure. How well are you building roads, right? Do you build roads for political gains, or you build feeder roads for farmers that would help them farm better? These things need to be done. If the structures are not kept, then importation would be the order of the day. And for the food prices, some are stagnant, but some bag of rice in January and now, I think the difference will be it's significant, but again, it's due to importation. But finally, subnationals must take ownership of this process. Agriculture is not on the exclusive list, right? I know we're still trying to increase the whole conversation about the evolution of power to subnational. Agriculture is not on the exclusive list. Agriculture is what everybody can invest in. Let's do more investment in it. Let's do more research on it, and let's see how it goes. But the problem is that these are things we would have started yesterday, or 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, and we are just starting now. Let's try to operationalize the 2000 tractor project.
Have we started?
I actually do not even have that answer, right? How often do I understand what the agricultural... It's easier for me to know what the finance minister is doing or the FCT minister is doing than for me to even know what the Minister of Agriculture is doing. And it goes back to some of the critics of the current administration, that we have a lot of under-the-radar ministers, that we know some, but there are just some we don't know. So I think we need to bring the Minister of Agriculture from under the radar to be very, very visible. Nigerians need to hear from the, though he may be doing that, but we need to hear from the agricultural minister more, understand the policies of government more, and not crowd conversations more with politics. But this food thing, like Kaftan have done today, is very important.
Nigerians have been told to hold their governors responsible,
yes,
to ask questions.
Yes.
Now we are saying that the Minister of Agriculture should come out more, and we should see him more.
We should understand what the government is doing.
There should be an interface between the Ministry of Agriculture,
yes,
and of course the minister who heads that ministry. Now you've said that the Nigerians also should ask questions and hold the minister accountable. As we round up, as a Nigerian, how would you do that? What message do you have? You've said a lot, but how should we follow you? What should we do in making sure that we get the answers that we want?
Okay, so the interesting thing about all this again is that we have a legislative arm there, and we'll definitely have a committee that's focused on this. How well do we pressure our... most times when we meet our senators and House of Rep members, we ask them for money for our children's school fees. And we don't know, ask them, how well do they go there and push for these structural reforms? Yes, they may, but how well do they do that? Also, again, in some state governments, you see this culture of saying, don't come to work on Friday, use Friday to go to farm, right? How well as we as a people even imbibe that culture of continuous farming? So how we can improve on this? First, as a person, what can we do? You have a small garden behind your house. That culture of farming there, how do we start it? 2, how well do we use our legislative arm, which represents a representative democracy, to clamor for these issues better? 3, which I feel is the most important, we need to hold our governors and our local government in quote. I said in quote because people will claim how the autonomy works more. What are you doing on agriculture? So for me, these are what I would do on these issues.
Whoa, so I want to thank you. Time is not our friend. We've come to the end of the press this morning. I don't know why the calls didn't come in. We'll try and rectify and find out that after the show. But I want to thank my guest, Ami-Okhani, social affairs analyst, for coming on the show. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your insights and, of course, your analysis. And I hope to see you again on the show. I would have told you to round up with your dialect to your people. I don't know if you can do that on what we've said, just to encourage
my people. Would they hear me?
Yes, they will. This show is a global. This is a global platform.
Okay, so after my mom, so me ma go na ele, lohi, ema like food. Maya wo so me. Ma let me beat a man. Insecurity, okay, voima yo egbe, but Maya rabo yo, let's try to improve on farming. So one more, don't mind me.
After my mo, can you imagine? I'm just getting my first call now. Can you imagine? I'm sorry, the show is over. We can't take any calls, but I appreciate that person calling right now. I appreciate you if you're watching for calling, but we can't take the call. Thanks for watching the show this morning. And of course, I want to appreciate everyone behind the camera who made it possible. And of course, thank my guest once again for honoring my invite. And for the other guests who couldn't come, I'm going to find out after the show why he couldn't make it. Well, keep on matching, stay positive, no matter what comes. Always approach issues with a positive outlook. Nigeria go better, I promise you. My name is Anire Binitie. Bye for now.